First, let me stress this, when I first finished the next part script, it was already over 14,000 words. Turn that into narration plus cutscenes, and the full video would push close to 90 minutes. So for easier viewing, I split Ref5's final section into Part 2 and Part 3. Thanks for understanding. Alright, picking up from last time. Chris and Sheva ride a small hovercraft toward the oil field. By now, Sheva already knows what Chris is after, so let's talk about Sheva's past. Her family tragedy began in the summer of 1994. Her parents were ordinary workers at Umbrella's Africa branch, Factory No. 57. But one day, the plant exploded. At just 8 years old, she was left alone in the world. So the government gave her a small monthly stipend. But a distant uncle targeted that money and forced his way into taking her in. And honestly, even if adopted, her life wouldn't have improved much. So she set off alone, ready to die, trekking across the savannah back to her homeland. You can guess what happened. She collapsed from hunger on the way. Luckily, a local guerrilla unit passed by and took her in. She eventually became one of them. As she grew up, she learned the explosion that killed her parents wasn't an accident. Umbrella was testing bioweapons and later, to erase evidence. They blew up the entire facility and covered up the truth from the public. That hatred of Umbrella grew with her inside the guerrillas, until she became part of an anti-government force. Later, her unit planned to buy bioweapons from Umbrella to attack the local government. She was asked to help stop the deal, if possible. Imagine her rage learning the people who raised her were working with the company that killed her parents. How could she not explode? So she agreed immediately and everything went according to plan. The American agent thanked her and recommended her to a U.S. military academy for formal training. Around the time Sheva graduated, the PSA had just been founded. So she joined the PSA's West Africa branch. Under Delta team leader Josh Stone, she received further combat training. She gradually became an elite operative in the West Africa branch, which is why she was later paired with a legend Chris. Of course, the story never tells us who that American agent was. So feel free to imagine it. Alright, moving on, we arrive at a small village. There, we find diary fragments written by local youths. They say outsiders seized their land years ago and built an oil field. Later, perhaps to make amends in some way, they would occasionally bring the villagers imported liquor. And since the swamp made travel hard, they even built a cable car for villagers, and so on. Over time, the villagers accepted it, and the land seizure faded into the past. Then a few months ago, the oil field manager came to the village and said, "Epidemics are breaking out everywhere. I know your medical and living conditions. So we're giving you free preventive injections. Nothing else, just to stay friendly as neighbors." The villagers saw it as kindness and accepted. A few days later, something strange happened. First, all the children developed high fevers. Mothers ran around fetching water to cool them down. But the fevers wouldn't break. By the next day, the children died one by one. The men confronted the oil field staff, and in the end both sides concluded the kids must have been infected before the shot and with weaker immunity than adults. They couldn't make it. To prevent a repeat, they urged all the adults to get vaccinated together. A few days later, something strange happened again. The women also developed high fevers and died. The men grew irritable and erratic, dressing up and dancing in ritual circles even though it wasn't a festival. Even the youth writing the diary started losing clarity. Eventually, he even felt like killing. So was this really caused by an epidemic? Or did it have something to do with those injections? Let's keep going. After exploring the village and crossing the swamp to head for the oil field, we soon spot Tricell's tents. Chris immediately asks, why is Tricell of the PSA's sponsors camped out in a nowhere place like this? Inside, we find Tricell memos. One is a field test report on a parasite called Type 3 Plaga. It says, Plaga comes in dominant and subordinate types. Subordinate Plaga only makes ugly zombies that can still follow orders. It doesn't enhance the host's abilities at all. So the research focus is how to transplant the dominant Plaga's enhanced performance into a more compatible subordinate strain. This becomes the Type 3 Plaga project. After extraction work and field trials, Tricell's researchers concluded, Type 3 Plaga is extremely unstable. Male stability hit 92%, but women and children were basically 0%. Second, since Type 3 still falls under the dominant Plaga category, the dramatic physical mutations from dominant Plaga still occur. In short, it's still ugly. These results are still far from the super soldier goal. But they did learn something. Surviving male samples clearly showed a major jump in combat power. They just looked terrible. So they kept it. There was still hope. After reading the report, we can see the preventive shots described in the diary fragments were actually Tricell and the oil field working together on a Type 3 Plaga field test. But as Chris said, why would a PSA sponsor play both hero and villain at the same time? Since we're here, let's return to last episode's big questions. When Chris arrived at the rendezvous with Alpha Team, why did the leader say it was a trap? If it's all Plaga, why was it an injection in the European village, but oral infection in West Africa? And why did the results jump straight to Type 3? Where did Type 2 go? Well, I think you can guess it now. Right, the oral one is Type 2 Plaga. First, remember, what Leon found in Re4's European village was the original Plaga. Inject a dominant type, and it can control those infected with subordinate types. And once criminals see something that powerful, of course they want to commercialize it. Even if they don't use it, selling it is easy money. For example, if Wesker wants to curry favor with his new bosses and fund his research, he has to do it. But commercialization hits one huge problem. The original Plaga needs an incubation period before it truly takes effect. Think back. Leon was infected at the very start of Re4, and only realized it near the end. So if you sell this thing, buyers can't even verify the goods. And people in that world have to be ready for anything at any time. Someone could roll up with a tank and start a fight. You can't say, "Waity haven't mutated yet." So Type 2 Plaga research was put on the table. When the results came in, they were impressive. Type 2 is oral, simple and brutal. Once swallowed, the parasite ruptures the esophagus, then uses the medulla to control the host's mind. Lab tests showed infection times under 10 seconds. After implantation, subjects displayed unprecedented aggression, and were easier to control than the original Plaga. So it was built time to test it in the field. The best test subjects would be trained soldiers, which means Alpha Team sent ahead into the Kijuju region naturally became the perfect source of field data. And when we retrieved the hard drive, Sheva also spotted Irving's figure. So he's clearly one of the observers collecting data. We can also be sure of one thing. After Wesker obtained a Plaga sample in Re4, he formed a working relationship with Tricell. They granted some of his requests. What those were, we'll get to later. After all that, remember our main objective. Right, capture the black market dealer, Irving. Irving is the oil field manager. The one who came to the village about the injections. And the oil field itself is Tricell property. So yes, Tricell is a big deal. Then we do what we always do, fight our way forward. Deep inside the oil field, we meet Delta Team leader Josh. The reason his body wasn't found at the Delta Team wipeout scene is that they were scattered during the attack. After a quick catch-up, we move on.
What are you going to do about them?
You're just one of Excella's playthings! It was your master who was supposed to
One more time. What are you going to do about them?
Alright. I'll handle it!
Use it.
This. Won't you two just die already? You're making me look bad! Who do you think got this entire operation off the ground? Do it! I'm far beyond anything you could ever hope to become!
Is complete. After injecting the Plaga given by the masked man, Irving leaps into the water, fuses with aquatic life, and becomes a massive monster. It attacks mainly with tentacles extending from its body. During the fight, just keep shooting the yellow sacks on its head. After enough damage, the monster opens its mouth, exposing Irving inside. Take that chance and keep firing to finish it. As he dies, Irving refuses to answer anything just to spite you. He says, if you want the truth, go to the cave ahead, everything is there. With that, Josh pilots the boat to take the two heroes to the cave. A mountain has a small opening, as if it glows. They leave the boat and enter. At first it's narrow, barely passable. After a few dozen steps, it suddenly opens up. The land is flat, houses neat. There are fertile fields, ponds, mulberry and bamboo. Paths crisscross, chickens and dogs can be heard. People come and go farming, men and women dressed like outsiders. While fighting through, we cut to a cut scene. Prep is basically done.
Then we can leave.
Good.
You know, I was surprised Las Plagas was such a success. When you first arrived, I had my doubts. And now Ouroboros is complete.
Your position at Tricell is secured.
Oh, I have my eyes set on something much bigger. You'll be needing a partner, right?
The BS they're here.
It appears your old friend, Chris Redfield, has come to pay you a visit. Do I sense concern?
The plan is in its final stages. I will not tolerate delays.
new superior breed creating a new world genetic virus. You used to become a god.
That right is now mine. I believe I should thank you, Spencer.
Following the path down into the massive ruins, we reach the deepest level. Then we find a huge flower bed. Why would anyone grow flowers down here? Chris also spots equipment cases bearing the Umbrella and Tricell logos. Judging by how worn they are, Umbrella clearly arrived long before Tricell. So if they came here at different times, were they researching the same thing? Those questions are answered when we find a letter. On the desk by the security panel, we find a file titled Research Chief Brandon's Log #1. Here, Ref Ives' full backstory is laid out. Class is in session, get your notebooks ready. First, the progenitor virus I mentioned earlier was extracted from these flowers called Stairway to the Sun. Outsiders originally didn't even know these flowers existed. The ancient ruins we just crossed, and the village with the diaries, all belonged to a tribe called the Ndapaya. This tribe existed long ago. When selecting a leader, they made candidates swallow the Stairway to the Sun. If the person was chosen, they gained incredible power. If not, they died on the spot. Later, the tribe isolated the flowers from the outside world, leading to the underground ruins and countless traps to stop intruders. By the 18th century, a European family named Travis founded a maritime trading group. Henry Travis was obsessed with developing natural resources. Like an old-school explorer, he traveled everywhere, recording all manner of strange things. This became a book called The Natural History Survey. It described in detail the Ndapaya leader selection ritual. Using that book, the family expanded into resource development and pharmaceuticals, eventually merging into the Tricell Corporation, what we now know as Tricell. Yes, Alfred and Alexia's grandfather from Code, Veronica. His friend, the European noble Oswell Spencer, found Stairway to the Sun in that book, and became fascinated by a flower that could enhance humans. So he brought along Edward, Dr. Marcus, and later the Africa Research Center Chief Brandon, and went to West Africa near Kijuju to find the Ndapaya and the flowers they guarded. As a biologist, Dr. Marcus analyzed the flowers and concluded they contained something that could alter DNA. Nothing like it had ever been documented before. It could be a world-changing discovery. So Dr. Marcus gave it a name. The progenitor virus. But due to the harsh field conditions, they decided to bring some flowers back to Europe for further study. Back home, they quickly hit a wall. For some reason, the flowers lost their properties and the extract no longer worked. Strange was it, the growing environment. So they replicated Kijuju's humidity, temperature, light exposure, soil, water, everything, and tried cultivating them again. But progenitor still wouldn't emerge. That went on for a full year. Failure after failure until all the Stairway to the Sun they brought back was used up. Their initial passion faded. In the end, Marcus and Brandon decided to return to Kijuju. But the Ndapaya's attacks were a serious problem. Then Spencer said, why not just take the place? Simple, right? Marcus and the others thought. Right, occupy it, build a factory or lab, and research becomes easy. Then it's convenient forever. So after over 4 months of expulsion operations, they couldn't drive out the Ndapaya completely. But their mercenaries seized nearly half the underground ruins. The rest didn't matter, the flower fields were now under their control. Back in Europe, Marcus and Brandon were thrilled by the news, and decided to head to Africa immediately to begin experiments. Note the date here, August 1968. An umbrella had already been founded in 1967. When Spencer heard Marcus and Brandon were about to depart, he offered a suggestion. Umbrella was new and urgently needed to cultivate talent and leadership. With his credentials and experience, Dr. Marcus was perfect to lead the executive training facility. How about this, Brandon, you go to Africa. I'll build you a lab. Once you extract a progenitor sample from Stairway to the Sun, mail it to Dr. Marcus so he can study it with better equipment at the training facility. Brandon was Marcus' student. And with Spencer calling the shots, Brandon had no choice but to go alone. Within the next year, Umbrella's Africa Research Institute was built. As we explore as Chris, we even find delivery slips for progenitor samples Brandon mailed to Marcus. Also worth noting, in Ref5's setting, all progenitor samples Marcus used while researching the T-virus were shipped from the Africa Institute. So after that explanation, you can basically see how the most important virus in Resident Evil originated. Everything I just said is based on Ref5's internal lore and documents. Later entries in the series do retcon parts of this, and we'll separate those details when we get there. Now that we've explained why Umbrella equipment cases are in the ruins, why is Tricell here too? In the next area, we push into Tricell's facility complex. On a computer, we find an internal log by a Tricell researcher named Miguel. It reveals the following. When Umbrella began to decline, Tricell secretly recruited many Umbrella researchers. From them, they obtained T, G, and Veronica virus data, among others. But the one thing they never got was the father of them all, Progenitor. Why? Because Umbrella kept the progenitor source and the Africa Institute extremely secret. Even when Umbrella collapsed, outsiders never learned it. So who leaked the information to Tricell? With that question, let's keep going. After passing the Stairway to the Sun cultivation area, we reach a massive underground facility. The central platform is a giant elevator for personnel. Looking around, the walls are packed with nutrient pods, all holding kidnapped human test subjects. Once a subject is sealed inside, the system automatically injects a virus. If the experiment fails, it ejects the sample and moves to the next trial. Chris and the others are left speechless. A place like this so utterly indifferent to human ethics. It's basically a concentration camp. As he processes it, Chris spots a computer in the corner, rushes over, and searches for Jill's name.
Jill. Damn it! Where is she?
Mr. Redfield, how nice to finally make your acquaintance.
Who the hell are you?
Excella. She works with Tricell.
Nice. You've done your homework.
An officer in the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium. Why?
As if I need to explain myself to you. Although, weren't you two given orders to retreat?
So it was you.
Where is Jill?
Jill, even if I did know, you think I would tell you?
Cut the crap. Tell me where she is.
As soon as you two are done with your little vigilante mission, you should leave. There's nothing here worth throwing your lives away for.
She's lying. She knows something.
It's time we get some answers.
So Wesker survived the cliff incident 3 years ago. But what is his relationship with Tricell? And who exactly is Excella, head of Tricell's Africa branch?